Welcome to Behind the Headlines. Today we're talking about a new RV pilot parking program in East Palo Alto that was developed to address the housing crisis among RV dwellers. I'm joined by reporter Sue Dremann and our special guest, Pastor Paul Bains from Project WeHOPE, which is overseeing the program. So welcome and thank you for coming. Sue, you've been reporting about the program this week, so why don't you tell us a bit about it?
Okay, well, the program got off the ground because there was more or less of an emergency in East Palo Alto. In fact, the city council this last week basically voted to declare a shelter emergency, and this is mainly because there have been so many people that were basically living in RVs in East Palo Alto, especially on Week Street. And last winter, there started to be an issue with they had to move them out because of potential flooding situation, and they found that there was a lot of trash and overflow of human waste and things of that nature. So they weren't getting any kinds of services, and they had nowhere else to go. So the decision was, rather than to do what a lot of other cities have done, which is just to chase people off, basically, the East Palo Alto would take care of its own first, and then if there's room, help others as well. But to set up a safe parking program that was basically modeled on like one in Santa Barbara. I believe Santa Barbara and San Jose are the ones that did this. San Diego and Santa Barbara, the places that did this first. And basically the idea behind it is to have a spot where the RVs can be at night, parked off the street, receive some services, and also work towards getting them basically out of their RVs and into shelters. So there's more comprehensive services and an outreach that's done to help people out. So that's kind of where East Palo Alto started is coming in. The council voted to approve almost, I guess, over $300,000. Over $300,000 basically, including funding that Project WeHOPE is getting together as well. And so the program is getting off the ground.
And this program is a little bit different than anything else that's out there. This is the first of its kind. So how is this program different?
Well, as Sue mentioned, there's a safe parking initiative for cars, but there has nothing been done for RV dwellers, as well as we're actually using city-owned land. So the city is actually a partner in this process, which is, we commend our city for doing that. We're all about, when you hear about NIMBYism, not in my backyard, well, we say yes, in our backyard, and we're going to take care of our own. So that's different, and it's specifically for RV dwellers. So cars and vans will not be allowed. Only RV recreation vehicles will be a part of this process.
And you said right now that a couple of churches in East Palo Alto have provided space, but now they'll be shifted to one location on city property through the program?
That's correct. We have some churches that are already allowing the RV dwellers to park on their grounds. But with this new program, it'll allow us to consolidate all the RV dwellers. We still will have access to those churches, though, in case there's either overflow or there's a need for some RV dwellers to be isolated from the larger group.
Okay, so what are some of the benefits of having people all in one place on the city land?
Well, it gives us more of a concentrated effort to reach out to them. We can, there's a community that's established with that, and believe it or not, whether they're in RVs or they're in cars or they're just on foot, the homeless have their own community, and they have their own way of protecting themselves and communicating. It doesn't always work everywhere, obviously. This will allow us to have this consolidated effort in a way we'll have security there. Our case managers will be able to work with the people there. It's also, thank goodness, right about 100 feet from our homeless shelter where we already house people and where our jobs program is. So they'll be able to walk right there from the RV camp to our shelter to receive those services.
Okay.
That's great. And can you tell us a little bit about, I understand now this is a pilot program, and how long is this supposed to go on for, and how long can the RV dwellers stay there?
The program is scheduled right now for a minimum of 1 year. It can go up to 2 to 3 years because it takes time to get people housed, and that's our ultimate goal is to get them into permanent or supportive housing, along with our partners, El Concilio, Samaritan House, Life Moves, and Abode Services. So it's not just Project WeHOPE who's leading the effort, who thought this up and things of that nature. Because we firmly believe none of us is as strong as all of us. And so a collaborative approach to address these types of systemic issues is critical. The program, they can stay there for about 90 days and there'll be exception. And we targeted 90 days because if you say the whole year, then people sometimes won't get serious until that 11th month or 10th month sometimes. I'm not saying every time, but sometimes. And having worked with homeless in our shelter, we know that we give them X amount of days, but we also plan for it if they need, we contingency plan if they need to have extra days because they're not quite there finishing their milestones that they need to reach. And so it's not the same for every individual. Some people get housed very quickly and some take a little bit longer. It just depends upon the circumstances.
So are there basically housing resources available for people? I mean, that you can put them into? We have two things that have gone on. We have basically, this tremendous rise in the expense of housing and just also a lack of housing in the area.
Yes, and I kind of preach this message, even as a pastor. I just play on words there, that the housing problem is not going to get resolved until we have a housing stock. And the type of housing stock that we need to have is Eli housing, extremely low income housing, so that the working poor and the homeless can actually get in there. They can qualify what they call AMI, area medium income. And we want that to be around 30% to 50%. That will help them. And so with their money that they get, and we're helping them get jobs, so it's not like a handout, but it's more of the hand up type scenario. We believe that love is not love unless discipline's in it, and so we are gently nudging them and encouraging them to meet these milestones, so that way they can hopefully get housed. We'll see. Realistically, it'll take 6 months, but it's also predicated upon the availability of housing stock.
Right. And how about children? Are you seeing a lot of families? I mean, what's kind of the mix of people that you've come across who are living in the RVs?
Yes, as you may be well aware of, I think you all covered it with the Ravenswood School District Superintendent Gloria Golf Hernandez, that there's 1,500 kids that are considered to be homeless according to the McKinley-Vento Act. So they're couch surfing out there. Some have been sleeping in vans and cars, but not a whole lot. But a lot are they're sharing their houses, 2 or 3 families staying in one house or apartment. So those are the ones that also are part of this. And we've already helped some families, along with the help of our partners, to get housed. We didn't wait for this to get approved. We've housed about 4 families, if I recall correctly, since November of last year, to get into permanent or supportive housing. And so that's our overall goal. Right now, we've assessed, I believe, about 7 families with kids out there. And then there's probably another 20 RVs that have adults in them, including teenagers. So when we say kids, we're talking about, under 17, 18 years of age.
And are there also a lot of working people that are in the RVs as well?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
one of the things that I found when I was interviewing people over near on El Camino near Stanford, was that it was amazing to me how even people who were working at Stanford themselves were living in RVs. So it seemed like quite a mix of people.
There is quite a mix of people. Again, it's the working poor. If people think that homeless people are always ones that are on drugs or mentally disabled or have PTSD, and many of them do, but not all of them. And that's what people have to understand, that we've had people with their PhDs in our homeless shelter. We have people who have worked at Google, and those are the ones that say, well, this program is not really for you. If you're making $150,000,
Yeah.
you can go and get an apartment. that stayed in our shelter once we found that out, because we have a little screening process. And so many of them, matter of fact, I would say the majority of them are working. They may be working 2 jobs. So it's not like they're just sitting on their laurels, as my father used to say, and doing nothing. And we're going to help them if they don't have a job. We're going to help them get a job through our Hope Jobs program.
That's one of the other things too, is that when we talk about drug addiction or alcohol addiction, it sounds as though there's also, within this program, there's the ability to get clean, or that's a requirement basically to be able to be in the program.
Yes. Again, love is not love unless discipline's in it. And so we're not trying to throw money at a solution at a problem that doesn't have a long-term solution to it. Our goal is to get everyone back on the road to self-sufficiency. And so if they do have a drug problem, we have drug classes that we have within our organization, as well as there are other drug programs within our community, because as you know, East Palo Alto was one of the epicenters where drug activity was many, many years ago. Now, since the police department has built great relationships within the community, that is not as prevalent as it was in years past.
Right. And when we talk about, it's interesting, the name of the program, and this has been throughout all of the other programs as well in other parts of the state, the Safe Parking Program. So there's something there. I think, people always kind of think about, you've got these RV dwellers, these homeless people, you hear this argument, these people have got to be troublemakers, or there are a few, of course, that do create problems. But the whole issue about safety, can you just tell us a little bit about that from the RV dwellers' perspective? What is it that they face?
So, because people are disadvantaged already, that there are people out there that will take advantage of the disadvantage. That historically has been the case throughout history, obviously. And in this case, if you have a family with kids, particularly kids that are under the age of 16, you have actually people out there that are predators. And so those predators will try to take advantage of any kid that they feel that no one will speak up on. It's kind of like some of the immigrants that have come here and they have established businesses such as selling fruit or flowers or things of that nature. Well, they get robbed, but they can't report it because there's fear of retaliation if they're going to get deported. And so that's the same thing with the RV dwellers as well. Some of them are, they're fear of people that will come and take advantage of their kids, and so they try to protect themselves. This will allow us to protect them even better because it will be a fenced-in area. It's not going to be a prison, but it will be a fenced-in area, and we will have a security guard there while they are there on the site.
So have you gone around and talked to some of the RV dwellers and surveyed them to see if this is something that they're happy about and they want to have this safe parking area?
Yes, and in all candidness, the city would like to see one thing, the RV dwellers would like to see one thing, and then where's the real thing that we can, what can we make happen? So it was all about being a bridge to bringing both perspectives, both sides of view of what they want, because in life we don't always get what we want, but we're trying to give them what they need. And so that's why we develop processes and systems that will help with that transition from being homeless onto being on the road to self-sufficiency and hopefully housed.
Can you speak a little bit about, there must be a transition in a person psychologically, or just on so many levels when you've had to live on the street, or, whether you're in a vehicle or not, just in terms of trying to survive day to day. And how does that kind of affect a person's ability to get back into the so-called regular life, with all of the things that society expects you to do?
Well, yeah, they face a myriad of challenges because, they've been ostracized. They've been forgotten about. And people forget that homeless people are humans just as we all are. And so to look them in the eye and speak with them and respect them that way, it helps to restore their self-esteem as well as their dignity. And so we look, because we've been working with the homeless for quite some time in our shelter and with our jobs program and our classes such as anger management, conflict resolution, financial literacy class. These are all holistic approaches, again, to get them back on that road so they can take care of themselves. And so helping to restore the dignity that we all deserve, that's first and foremost. And becoming a trusted source per se, that, we're not going to, if they are an immigrant, that they're not going to get deported. That's one of the things. But we're also here to help them, and we want to build that relationship. And so we've had to let them know, no, you're not going to have the sauna, and you're not going to have the 4-story house here on the site. It's, I'm making fun of it and what have you, and just working with them in the city and saying, well, how about this? Let's look at this. We're an organization that likes to be more solution driven as opposed to problem consumed. I love it when people bring up issues and they talk about the elephant in the room, because I will do that, and I don't care who the audience is. That's just how I'm wired. But I don't want to hear about problems 2 and 3 times without a solution accompanying that problem. So I'm pretty candid about certain things.
What really strikes me also is like going to the city council meetings is that this went through fairly quickly, for as processes go within governments. And I wonder if you could speak a little bit about East Palo Alto as a community. And it's kind of it just seems, when I listen to, and of course there are people who are opposed to it, but everybody even that was opposed to it said, well, we'd like to see some kind of solution. I think that there's something kind of special about the community, and even the city council said some very heartfelt things about, not leaving anybody behind. And I go to other council meetings in other cities, and I don't hear that. So could you maybe speak a little bit about what, kind of the dynamics in East Palo Alto that makes them reach out to other people?
Because at one time, I would say, first and foremost, East Palo Alto is a very forgiving city. And you may know, of course, back in the 90s, 92, 93, we were considered the murder capital, homicide capital of the United States per capita.
I've stopped reporting on that now.
Yes.
You don't have to say that anymore.
That's exactly right. And so we are so proud that we haven't had a street homicide for over 2 years. That has never been done in the history of the organization of the city. And so we end up working together from different backgrounds, different socioeconomic status, and things of that nature to come to one another's help and support one another. It's not that we all agree on every issue, because there's you don't do that in your own family, your own biological family. And we consider ourselves a huge family where pretty much everybody knows everyone. If you've lived here any time, people in that community. It's 2.2 square miles or 2.5, depending on who you talk to. And it's a very loving and giving community. And our city council grew up in that community. Right. And so it wasn't that they were transplants that got here, 3 years ago and got on the council. No, they've been here. I probably would say the minimum, maybe 15, 20 years is the minimum person that transplanted to East Palo Alto on the city council. Other than that, some of them went to my church, so I know some of them and what have you, and years ago. And we just believe in taking care of our own, because community loves one another. It's not, again, NIMBYism is really not a huge factor when it comes to people type issues. Now, other issues, yes, they will be very vocal on those issues.
Right. Yeah. Well, anyway, tell us a little bit about what the next steps are.
So now that we have been unanimously approved by the city council, we have to prep the site, and that's where the city comes in, helping to prep the site as well as us. Project WeHOPE has to raise probably about $150,000. We didn't include any contingency money in there, and we know we're going to have to do that because that's going to help pay for some of the repairs. Each of these RV dwellers that will be in there, we're going to make sure they are ready, move in, have capabilities to move in with having fire extinguishers, that they're operable, that they're all registered, because they're going to have to move from place to place at some point in time. We want to make sure we have carbon monoxide indicators in each of these units, and what have you, because we don't want to take on liability and have these people in jeopardy. because that just is not good for the city. It's not good for Project WeHOPE and our partners that's working on this. We will do our assessment. We'll reassess where everybody is now, even though we've already did a survey out there. And then we start to interview all the families and do a case plan to see, okay, where do you want to be? Do you want to remain in this community, or do you want to try to move out of this community, or what? Because if they want to stay here, we're going to help them stay in our community. And that will be done with our case manager and our director, Alicia Garcia, and our case managers. We also have to look at the timeline. We've outlined the timeline on what the phases will be in order to make this happen.
That's great.
Is there anything else anyone wants to add?
We will be supplying our Dignity on Wheels program, which currently we're in 4 counties and 14 cities right now, our mobile hygiene unit. So that will be out there as well, even though we'll have porta potties out there, but we're also going to bring our showers, and we'll be able to wash their clothes, and all of this will be at no cost to the RV dwellers. And then they'll be able to eat at our shelter 7 days a week. And that will alleviate enough, I would say, resources so that they don't have to continue to, spend money on stuff. They can actually save that money. That will help them and give them a nice little runway back on that road to self-sufficiency.
I understand as well that Dignity on Wheels is going to be at a couple of other potential RV safe parking program sites. Where are those going to be? What other cities are getting involved in this potentially?
Yeah, Pastor Brian Leong from the Chinese Christian Church in Mountain View, partnering with the County of Santa Clara. He's leading the effort. It's called Lots of Love, and he's working with the faith-based organizations out there to use their lots. So they'll have more of a mobile type transient program for us, and that will be for cars and vans. I don't know if they'll be doing RVs or not, but I do know that they're doing cars and vans. And then the city of San Jose, we have their contract. Our mobile hygiene unit is out there 7 days a week in the city of San Jose, and we're partnering with the service provider out there, which is Life Moves, to establish the safe parking initiative. And then the city of Oakland has asked us. We're out there, and we're going to hopefully help them. But first and foremost, we're dealing with East Palo Alto, because we've been even asked by some Palo Altans to come over here, because there's actually more RV dwellers in Palo Alto than there are in East Palo Alto.
So there could potentially be something that would work out in Palo Alto as well?
I don't know, because the cost
Yeah.
of land, if someone's willing to allow us to use their land, we're willing to come and help establish that. Because there's quite a few on El Camino, and they're intertwined within the community, within the city.
Right.
We're willing to do that, but first and foremost, we want to get success underneath our belt with this program. We are willing to do that.
That's great.
Well, thanks for joining us today. That wraps up this week's Behind the Headlines. If you liked what you heard, press the button below or follow us on social media. If you want to stay up to date on Palo Alto news, go to paloaltoonline.com. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next week.